Hello and welcome. My name is Meg Smolinski. I am the Outreach Coordinator for the University of Maryland's Arboretum and Botanical Gardens. The University of Maryland is located just outside of Washington, D.C. in College Park, Maryland, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some insect pests on our squash plants at the Community Learning Garden. Now, the Community Learning Garden is the campus's largest food garden, and we grow a variety of crops in this garden. Today we'll be focusing on just 3 pests that continually are seen in the garden. That would be squash, vine, borer, and aphids, and spotted lanternfly. This insect, the spotted lanternfly, has not been seen on campus yet, but it has been known to feed on squash and cucumber vines, and so I am including it in today's lecture as something to be aware of. I'd like to focus on sustainable pest management. This is something that is very important at the Community Learning Garden as we are managed as an organic garden. Now, we are not a certified organic garden because we do not sell any of our produce, and the certified organic label is reserved for people who are selling their produce. All of our produce is donated to the campus pantry. Sustainability has been defined by the United Nations as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And the university itself has made a sustainability goal to be carbon neutral by 2025. Now, the Arboretum encompasses the entire 1,300-acre campus here in College Park, and we have many organically managed landscapes, and we do a lot to reduce our carbon footprint. And specifically, the Community Learning Garden contributes to the sustainability of the university by using organic farming methods, integrated pest management practices, and we provide locally grown food to the campus pantry. The campus pantry supports Terps who are food insecure here on campus, so whether you are staff, faculty, or a student, as long as you have your university ID, you can access the pantry, no questions asked. And we started supporting their efforts at the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020. When everything was shut down, we thought about how we could support our campus in that time of need. And since then, we have donated 100% of our produce to the pantry, whereas before we would make regular contributions, but much of it was taken home by volunteers. As I said, it's the largest food garden on campus. There are 2 other food gardens on campus, and they do have individual efforts to support the campus pantry as well and contribute to the beauty and sustainability of our campus. The Community Learning Garden was established in 2010 with a Sustainability Fund grant and continues to be supported by interns, a student group, and dozens and dozens of volunteers who donate their time over the course of the growing season. It is a joint venture of the Arboretum and the Institute of Applied Agriculture. I am actually the staff advisor for the garden, and we are also supported by the School of Public Health and Recreation and Wellness, Dining Services, the Office of Sustainability, and other departments on campus. As I mentioned, we grow a wide variety of crops on campus at the Community Learning Garden. The Community Learning Garden space includes an orchard that grows apples, pears, cherries, and figs. We also have raised bed area that is utilized as a teaching garden and is ADA accessible. We have grown tomatoes and squash, a variety of herbs, basil, chives. We have grown cabbages, salad mixes, and the crop plan is decided every year by the student club that is associated with the garden. The members vote on the crop plan and run the plan by myself and the faculty advisor, who is a professor of sustainable agriculture at the Institute of Applied Agriculture. And we oversee the garden and its management, including the integrated pest management. We lead the students in identifying insects in the garden, removing them by hand, literally picking them off of the plants. We also often plant a wide variety of flowering plants to attract both pollinators and predator insects. In addition, we have a sloped area that is covered with mint that we let grow as much as it wants to grow, and we let that go to flower because there is a solitary bee wall in the garden as well, and the bees seem to really respond to having the mint flowers there and use that as a food source. In addition, there is a stormwater swale along the side of the garden that collects stormwater to use for irrigation. And in the stormwater swale, we have native sunflowers growing, asters, monarda, coreopsis, and other pollinator-friendly plants. Having the swale filled with plants not only attracts pollinators and creates habitat for them, many insects overwintering in the hollow stems, but also it physically slows down the water as the water runs through the swale, slowing it down and preventing erosion. The community learning garden is located on quite a slope, and the terrain has always been a challenge, and it was one of the reasons why this area was able to be turned over to a food garden in 2010, because we had not really come up with a use for it before that. Turning now to insects at the community learning garden, as I mentioned, we have a wide variety of insects that visit the garden, and there are entomology classes that visit the garden to do collecting, and we also have certainly posted our fair share of both beneficial and not beneficial insects on our community learning garden Instagram and Facebook pages. The three that we are going to focus on today are squash vine borer, aphids, and spotted lanternfly. Again, spotted lanternfly has not been seen on campus, but it has been spotted in a number of surrounding counties that surround Prince George's County, which is where College Park and the University of Maryland is located. The first insect we'll talk about is the squash vine borer, and you can see an example of one there in the image. You can see that it is quite small, but it can do quite a bit of damage. What happens is the squash vine borer does exactly what its name suggests. It bores into the squash vines, and this can disrupt the xylem and phloem, flow of nutrients and water within the plant, causing the plant to wilt and leaves die, and in some instances the entire plant can end up dying. Now, really, one of the best things that a gardener can do in order to control any sort of pest insect is understand the life cycle of that particular insect. Where does it overwinter? Where does it attack the plant? How does it survive from year to year? Instead of simply resorting to insecticides to remove the insect. So with the squash vine borer, it overwinters in the soil in the garden. And so if you have already had an infestation, that means that there may be more generations of this insect growing within the soil. And one of the cultural controls that you can employ is simply to till your soil and to bring those insect larvae up to the top over the winter so that the cold temperatures can kill them and disrupt their life cycle. Another way that you can control the pest is to remove them as best you can from the plant themselves. So you can see here there's information on how to very carefully and gently remove the squash vine borer from the plant itself. This is possible. And then you can either squash the bug using gloved hands or dunk it in a bucket full of soapy water. And we do have students who physically remove pest insects from our plants from time to time. And this is actually a great volunteer activity because it is an educational opportunity to learn about a pest insect that is common in gardens, to identify them, and it is a very clear task to set volunteers to, and they seem to enjoy having a beginning and an end to this very clear and concise task. Next, we'll move on to aphids, which are an occasional pest on our squash plants in the garden. Now, aphids are very common in many gardens in our area and can be seen on the flower stems, leaf stems, and if you see a curling leaf on one of your pepper or squash plants, this can often indicate that an aphid activity is present, and you should turn the leaf over to inspect the bottom side of the leaf, look at where the leaf or flower attaches to the plant to see if there are aphids clustering there. Aphids are soft-bodied insects that have piercing sucking mouth parts, so you can also see evidence of them through stippling on the leaves as they pierce into the leaf itself and suck out all of the food source inside. Now, aphids are a food source themselves to many predator insects, including lacewings and parasitic wasps, ladybugs, and so you can do things to encourage these predator insects to come to your garden. And that is one of the reasons why we practice organic farming at the Community Learning Garden. We generally do not spray any insecticides whatsoever, not even organic insecticides. We do accept quite a bit of crop loss, probably more than a for-profit garden would accept. And part of this has to do with the fact that we utilize student volunteers, and we don't want to put the volunteers in the proximity of insecticides or pesticides while they are in the garden. The University of Maryland Extension Service does recommend using insecticidal soap if there are quite a few aphids and you are not seeing the predator insects in your yard. We do not do that on campus. We generally will remove the plant, aphids and all, if it is becoming too much of a problem. And sometimes aphids can just be blown off of the plant with a spray of water or shaking it. It's also perfectly acceptable to squish these with a gloved hand as well. We have done ladybug releases at the Community Learning Garden in the past, and you can often buy bags of ladybugs and even praying mantis egg cases, which are called uthicas, at your local hardware store. I generally don't recommend buying a bag of insects that has been sitting on the shelf and in a truck for who knows how long. In our experience, even when we do mist the plants with water before releasing the ladybugs, they are often gone within 24 hours of releasing them. And so we feel that it's better to concentrate our efforts on attracting predator insects that are already in the area to our garden. Now moving on to our last insect, the spotted lanternfly. Again, this has not been seen in Prince George's County as of July 14th, 2022. It has been seen in Montgomery County and Anne Arundel County. And I include it here because it has been known to feed on cucumber and squash vines, cucurbits, if you will, but also because it is just such an important new exotic invasive pest here in Maryland. So you can see the 4 stages of the life cycle of the spotted lanternfly on the left, the egg masses, and then the nymphs, and then the adult spotted lanternfly on the far right. One of the things that you can do is, if you are traveling between counties, you can scrape the egg masses off of the wheels of your vehicle or your trailer. They will lay eggs on non-organic matter, and you can squash any adult or nymph lanternflies that you see. Oftentimes you will not see a single adult spotted lanternfly, but rather you will find clusters of them or swarms of them. They are larger than you might think. They are about an inch or so long, and they should be stomped and reported to University of Maryland Extension. At this time, neem oil and insecticidal soap are the two preferred chemical treatments for spotted lanternfly, according to University of Maryland's Extension Service. No harsh insecticides have been recommended at this time. It is mostly cultural and mechanical controls for this insect, which is the scraping of the egg masses and physically squishing or drowning the nymph and adults that you may find in the landscape. As with other insects, planting a wide variety of flowering plants and plant types in your garden area can attract other predator insects. While they are a food source for natural enemies in Maryland, there isn't enough of these natural enemies to really make a dent in them. However, there's no downside to planting a variety of plants in your garden. Anytime that you can avoid a monoculture it's best to do that. So my takeaway message today and my call to action for you is to understand that it is critical to know the life cycle of your pest insect. This is a cultural control, understanding how it overwinters, how it survives, how it reproduces, and anything in the environment that it needs to do these things. And mechanical and cultural control can really be quite effective in reducing or eliminating the pest insect in your garden. And these are things like the squishing of the bugs that I mentioned, tilling the soil, not planting the same crop year after year. In my own garden at home, I was having a problem with whiteflies that were attracted to my cabbage plants, and they got so numerous that they actually started attacking my rosemary. And so now I don't plant cabbage anymore in my garden, and I have found other vegetables to replace that. So switching out your crops, crop rotation is also very effective and something that should be done. We all like a little variety in our life, and so mixing up our vegetables that we grow can add that bit of a variety. Here are some sources that I used to create today's presentation, and if you would like me to email this to you, I would be happy to do so for your further reading. Please let me know any other questions that you have. If you would like to visit the Community Learning Garden, I would be more than happy to take you on a tour and show you what we are doing there. It is one of my favorite projects on campus, and it means a great deal to many students who have either volunteered or been an intern or part of the student group during their time here at the University of Maryland. And having the extra layer of support of the campus pantry has really been a benefit, not just for the pantry, but for all of us gardeners who work so hard as well. Please let me know if you have any questions about volunteer opportunities, internships, or touring the campus. And thank you very much for your time today.